Okay, it is Wednesday, July the 15th, 2020. And welcome to week number 2. And with week number 2, it signals the fact that we are 1/3 of the way through this course, believe it or not, because it's only 5.5 weeks, 6 weeks of assignments, and then you're out. So in fact, it's August the 11th, I believe it is. We'll see it on the calendar here. And so anyway, I'm going to take time today to go over the assignments. I have not graded the week 1 assignments yet. They will be done by the end of the day, Friday. And so you should look for them. And then we're going to talk about today the assignments for week number 2. All right. So next week, hopefully I'll be able to tell you some things that you might have messed up with week 1. But I believe that based on the questions that many of you asked me, that you have the routine down for the assignment for week 1. But we shall see. Of course, all of this stuff here I'm not going over again. I go over that at the beginning. I do remind you that your rubrics are in each written assignment. I do remind you too that the lectures can be found on this page by clicking on this. It will take you directly to the lecture itself, and it will allow you to see the lecture. The next lecture, week 3, and then after this, we have only 2 more lectures because there is no lecture in week 6 for this class. Okay, so we'll have 2 more lectures after today. So let's take a look at the announcements. Okay, adults, juveniles, and criminal behavior. Chapter 6, 12, and 17 of American Corrections. I did previously email each of those to you so that you will have that for your study along with the additional information to help you out as well. We're going to cover theories impacting corrections, incarceration, and the criminal experience, special populations, adult correct systems, and then remind you that you need to do the vocabulary review to help you with the quiz. Be sure to participate in the discussion assignment, adult and correction systems. The initial post was due yesterday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, the reply post is due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard. And finally, the written assignment, uh, correctional systems, which I'll cover in a few minutes, and the quiz, which you already know about from last week. You get your 3 times that you get to complete the quiz by Sunday, 11:59 Central Standard. So you can theoretically take the quiz Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then, but make sure that when you do take the quiz, that you take it after you've studied the materials. Again, remember it's a closed book quiz as well. My motto, Adversity Springboard to Success, you know what that's all about. And I was also very pleased with the responses I got from students who sent me private emails and commented when they gave the key phrase last week of student success as to my story about adversity as a springboard to success. I always encourage you guys that I've been around a while, 70 years. I've seen a lot of things, learned a lot of things, and so it gives me an opportunity to share a lot of things. And I always want my students to be aware that uh, I'm sensitive to your concerns, your issues, and your problems. I'm not the typical professor. I'm not even trying to be. I just have to be Professor Wright, and that's who I'm going to be, regardless of the situations or the circumstances. All right. So again, congratulations to you guys who said that this will help you a lot to get through not just this class, but life in general. That means that um, I'm not sharing information in vain. Let's look at our course calendar, reminding you where we are here. And again, as I share with you, you can click on it and it opens up information to you. So as you can see, Monday, you start your reading. Tuesday, initial post, live lecture today, live lecture, reply posts Sunday. And then, of course, the 19th, you turn in, your due date is for the written assignment. Oops, that's wrong. Written assignment. And then your quiz. And then your key phrase. All that's due on Sunday. Okay. And as a friendly reminder, the course ends the 11th, as I said earlier. That's when the course ends. So we have less than a month in this course already, so it's very important to stay focused and not fall behind. It's very important to let me know if you have problems as soon as possible so that we can together tackle those problems to help you achieve that key phrase, student success. All right. So no one can say, oh, I didn't know that the course ends that Tuesday. I thought it ends that following Sunday. Nope. That means that you didn't look at the lectures or listen to the lectures that I cover. So let's go to module 2. Let's look at the assignments real quick. Again, this is your discussion post and your initial post. The difference between adult and juvenile correction systems, and support the selection one of the differences that takes place in juvenile corrections and the terminology and so forth. And then why do you believe the difference is important? And judging from what I've read, many of you already have got it down pretty well. And then in your response post or reply post, choose a peer who described a different other than yours. Discuss whether you believe the process they provided supported that difference, and then share your beliefs as to the importance of that difference. All right. And so the scheduling on those due dates. So now let's look at the written assignment. Let me move this up here. All right. So correctional systems. Now, you already know that the 4 elements of the correctional system are what? Anybody? You can either type it out. Okay. Okay. Excellent. And that's it. Um, that's it. No others. And that's one of the things that we always want to try to get students to understand clearly. In the 11-week course, people had trouble understanding that. So once you got that concept in mind and you decide which one that, is going to be used for what and what purposes that they serve. What you're going to do from this particular point now is, and now through research, uh, correction practitioners I learned things that are utilized in the correctional systems or intervention strategies to help reduce recidivism. And recidivism, in other words, is coming back. And the system that I have worked in many years as a criminal justice professional, as a lawyer, I saw people go in prison, come out of prison, go back in prison. But the reason why is because there weren't effective strategies or interventions to work with those individuals to reduce recidivism. Some have said that it was purposely done to keep many of the people who work in the field of criminal justice employed. Um, and I don't argue with that because I've actually read some articles that say that it was done on purpose. But as I am getting older, I'm reminded that when those people go in and increase their opportunities to attend, as I call it, prison, or to be incarcerated, then they're going to learn more about how to be a real hardcore criminal each time. It's just like you guys starting out in your first year, you learn about criminal justice, and by the time you get to your associates and or bachelors, you know a whole lot more about it. That's the same thing that happens realistically with individuals in the correctional system, especially those who deal with the jail and the prison aspects of it. So we have to recognize that there are no cookie cutter answers to dealing with this situation, and that we got people, we got women, as it says, we have juveniles, we have elderly, we have mental illness, developmental disabilities, veterans, and now we have one that is missing from here that is predominant. Anybody know what group that is? Yes, yes, that's it. But more like the overall group. What do you call the overall group? Letters. You don't have to give me the whole name. But you're right though. How about LGBTQ group? That's the overall umbrella of the group. That's a group now that we're dealing with specifically as well. We've also had and so in here it lists some of the special populations. Uh, Substance abusers. Oh my God! Let me tell you something, guys. The two at the top, and they should rightfully be so, since I teach drugs and crime. Uh, and I say this constantly, so that I drum it into my students' head that um, you guys can't hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep going. Okay. But what I was going to say is that the substance abusers are individuals who, as I say, commit crime to support their drug habits. And so, as a result of that, they find themselves in situations where they run up the recidivism rate because the issues that relate to substance abuse are not adequately addressed. And one of the reasons that it's not adequately addressed is not because of the substance abuser, but because of the the finances that the agencies are willing to commit to substance abusers. And so we must recognize that there's going to be, I would say, probably just going out on a limb, not having taken a survey, that of individuals that might even fit in other groups, substance abusers overlap into probably, I'd say high 90s. I would say high 90s in terms of that being an element. And so I remind individuals who are seeking to become law enforcement professionals, especially in that area, and individuals who work in the jails and the prisons, that the individuals who are substance abusers are individuals who are like sick people, and that they are uh, tied into it. And so when you take the drugs and crime course, if you get the section that I teach, you'll understand some of the things that I talk about in terms of it, because I represented many people in those instances. Second one, mental illness. That's like a unfortunate double dynamite thing that takes place with substance abusers. There's many crimes that take place in our country because there are individuals who have mental illness that is not properly addressed. Let me give you an idea of why I say that. In 2001 to about 2004, I taught special education, and I dealt with a lot of students who are who were um, incorrigible or either behavioral disorder students for various reasons. And I was able to reach many of them because I shared my story about what I had gone through and let them know. Because some of them used that as an excuse for the way that they operated and ended up in the behavioral disorder programs. But I wouldn't let them off of that. But the fact of the matter is that what I'm about to say to you is this, is that when I worked in that program or programs, I worked in 2 different school districts, and I have colleagues that worked in many others. They will tell you quickly that they aren't paid adequately, and that there is um, a level that individuals who are heads of household, particularly if they're males, can't afford to work those jobs. Therefore, they lose a lot of opportunities to help these. And so what I'm saying is that they can head off these issues in schools. I taught as low as um, first grade and all the way up through high school. So, and when I got to high school, many of those individuals found themselves in the juvie system. And now some of those individuals that I have discovered down through the years, since many years have passed, have gone in the wrong direction. So, but anyway, so we're going to have problems with these unless this country recognizes and understands that we address these issues um, at the school level to try to fix it. Offenders with developmental disabilities, same issue goes with that, is that individuals, the funding that is not given. And the programs, while I was talking about mental illness as well, the funding for these programs is not very um, big. It's out. People talk about getting education for our kids, but what about developmental disability students? What about mental illness? Addressing that issue, we would have less crime. Offenders with HIV and AIDS, that's a group that now exists as far as prisons and jails. Women, the population for women um, has increased and gone up in our times, and you'll discover that as I represented several women in cases, that most of the women that ended up incarcerated were either dealing with drugs, um, or mental illness, but primarily drugs, but also the point I'm about to say is they dealt with domestic violence, being the victims of domestic violence and retaliating, but not necessarily being protected um, by the individual, the legal system, and that as a result, women prisons or facilities are on the rise as well. Uh, Juveniles, goes without saying, many of our gangs are juveniles. And again, if we address the issue based on these other things, we can deal with that. Elderly offenders now, you're seeing more elderly offenders as well, long-term offenders, military vets. Uh, as you know, many people, and it's sad to even have to make this statement, but that is true, is that military vets serve our country, lay down their lives, and they go in now. There's no draft, so they go in to serve. And I've talked to a number of students in the last year who have just opted to go to the military to help pay for education and or just to have a job and place some even. Do you not know that there are people who go into the military so that they won't be homeless? Did you, are you aware of that? If not, you should be aware that that's also one issue. And unfortunately, when they go in and they come out with damage from the things that they were engaging with while in the military, um, uh, such as dealing with the chemical warfare and things like that. And then let me not get on and start talking about um, the young lady, Vanessa Guillen. And everybody familiar with Vanessa Guillen? The name Vanessa Guillen? Anybody know that name? Yes or no? Yep, at Fort Hood. Yeah, yep, very good. Yeah, she's the young lady who was murdered at Fort Hood. And she, she's tied into our area here in the Chicago area. In fact, one of the individuals who murdered her, and the murdering went with the sexual abuse that she had said that she was under, and of course she died a horrendous death. So what I was getting ready to say is that unfortunately female individuals who are in the military have to face the dangers of their own colleagues um, being sexual predators and disrespecting women. So what I'm trying to say is that that leads to individuals who are uh, in prison as well. Sexual offenders, it goes without saying, we have that. We've had that forever. Sexual offenders, of course. If you're a pedophile, for example, it's interesting. They will want to kill you because you give a bad name to criminals. That's all I can say about that for right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to create an action plan that contains the following, and you want to make sure that you um, do both parts of this assignment. So provide an overview of the characteristics that define this group as as a special population. So you're going to select a group. Okay. Now, don't try to do more than one because you won't do justice to it. And in part two, describe the issues that impact your special population. Um, Basically, what I want you to do is provide research and information to support what you're going to say. Bullet point number 3, people, is where I'm going to be on my soapbox. You must provide credible resources. You must, and you'll see why when we get into the rubric. And so, and then ideas with the professional language, correct spelling, grammar, and so forth. That's built within the rubric. Okay. And then, submit your document as a Word document. So now let's look at how that works. Let's look at the rubric. So for your 60 points, remember what I said. Okay, I'm going to say this. Act as if this, this, and this does not exist. Act as if there's only one column, but we have to put in more than one column in this type of grid. That's the way the school does it. I do mine a little differently, but I follow once they end, and they ask me not to change this one because they're looking at some things. So here's what I want you guys to understand. Don't try to do the minimum. This is the minimum, and it's not passing. This would be like C work, and this might be B work, might be C work. This is A and B work. So the characteristics of the special population, exemplary. That means give me some good information concerning the characteristics of the population and provide supporting evidence from credible resources. Listen to me good. Pay attention to what I just said. Notice what happens. If you do this, your credible resources, then you could end up here with satisfying this. But look at what happens. Just jump over here. Incomplete information, missing supporting evidence from credible resources. So if there are no citations involved in the paper, not a citation, citations involved in the paper, then what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself in the situation where you will end up over here. And most you can get is 5 points. So you will jump off automatically halfway behind. Minimal supporting evidence from credible resources will get you 2 more points. Accurate population with supporting evidence will get you this. But when I see you going over and above, so somebody asked me how many credible resources, you have to determine that. If you yourself were looking at, did you do the best job that you're capable of doing? Not the one that you had time to do, but capable of doing. That's the key. And that's where I want you to begin to think about each and every week in terms of completing these assignments. I promise you that if you satisfy this column, you will end up well off. So then you deal with the issue impacting the special population or issues. Same thing. So you're going to have credible resources up here, credible resources here. Now, the key thing is that, once again, you're going to provide as many to support the issues of those things that impact your special population. Don't just throw something out there. Give me a source that you got that information from. And by the way, don't lean heavily on your textbook. Some of you will do that, and that's going to be a big mistake. You're going to end up over here if you do that, because people who heavily use their textbook, they don't get over here. That's not exemplary. All right. Then the proposed solution that you provide to deal with the issues, address and align and support that as well. So, and then this is when you get to your Grammarly and your typo, and you get your spelling, and no Wikipedia involved. We already know that. So does everybody kind of understand what I'm saying? Any questions? Let's see if the question comes out. Okay. Here's a question that students are afraid to ask. How long should the paper be? Well, it doesn't have to be that many pages, but here's the way I get you thinking. This is the way I thought when I was in school, because I didn't have all this stuff to guide me. I had to provide enough evidence to someone on an assignment that I was completing to make them realize that I invested time and effort to discover what is actually going on in the area that I'm addressing. Sometimes it was 2 pages. Sometimes it was 3 pages. I didn't look at how many pages. I just looked at dealing with the issues. If you're busy dealing with the issues and providing the proper amount of credible resources to cover it, then you're going to not worry about that page length. But it is going to be APA, by the way. And by the way, each section you're not going to write. Like, for example, I had one student one time to do this. They wrote each section, characteristics of special population and so forth, and then they covered that. And then they went to the next one. Said, no, don't do this. Your paper should flow with all of this covered in it. Everybody got that? Get into that habit, please. I encourage you to do that. If you have trouble dealing with this, reach out quickly to a peer mentor and or a student tutor quickly so that you understand. But if you operate on the basis that your rubric consists of only the column to the right and that you're not even reading this over here, then you're going to. So my A and B students will be over here. Okay. My A and B students will be over here. Very, very important. If I sound like I'm trying to make this easy for you, that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm imploring you, please, if you get this part right, guys, this will be the easiest 5.5 weeks that you ever had in any classes. As by the way, it can carry over into future classes as well. Any questions about this assignment? All right. Okay. So follow that. The formula is research, write, provide credible resources to answer and support each of the points that you're addressing in your paper. And an APA style, which by the way, we're still using 6th edition. You can use 7, but 6th edition, starting in the fall, we will go to 7. I think I talked about that last week. Okay, now I'm spending a lot of time on this because last week was more like a graph or a chart. When you get to your written assignments where you're actually going to be providing text information throughout, I want you to understand that this will help you with every week's assignments, except there's a few other ones that, and when we get to those, we'll address those, of course. All right. So even with me grading next week's assignment, it really doesn't help you that much because the big difference from last week is that number one, it wasn't a page length issue, and it wasn't a definitely wasn't a citation and reference issue. To a point, I want references from last week, but now we're getting into the hardcore of what we need to get done. All right. So now let's go to the very last thing, which I'll hit that quickly and then we'll spend the next 20 minutes or so talking about what we have to do here. So your quiz, you already know how that works. You get 3 bites out of the apple before the due date. Now, this first week, I let a few go by that came in on Monday. Going forth, um, I think somebody asked a question that I answered already. Okay. I addressed that by simply saying that there is no page requirement, and I want you to stop thinking about the page requirements when you do your assignments. And the reason why I want you to do that is think in terms of addressing the issues adequately in detail. And then the page requirements generally will take care of itself. What students do is they're looking at this wrong. If they're looking at how many pages my paper be, then you're not going to necessarily, even if you add more information, you're not going to satisfy addressing the issues. So your paper should adequately address the issues that are in there. Okay. No, no problem, no problem. And this is what I try to tell students in all of my classes. They say, "Oh, my assignment needs to be a 2 to 3 page paper." And the reason why we say that is because we believe that that number of pages that are given is adequate to address the issues, and that if you do it in less than that, then you haven't done justice to addressing the issues that need to be addressed in an assignment. Okay. All right. Um, so then the quiz, as I said, you have 3 bites out of the apple. I did give Monday and this week going forth, I was saying that week 2 quizzes will not, I will not, if I see one that's late, then unless we had some extenuating circumstances that I'm aware of. And, I have some students that say their work schedule. Well, I'm sensitive to a point because of the pandemic, but then I'm not sensitive, and it depends on what kind of work you're doing. And I would say, for example, if you're a first responder or you're a necessary worker in terms of situations, because most people are working at home, then in those situations, then I kind of work a little more flexible based upon the fact that we have this pandemic that's going on, and especially for you guys in Florida and of the states where our campuses are located. The other states that are going up, um, and I see it increasing. We just picked up Iowa, which is right next to Illinois here, and also just so you know, Illinois is heading in the wrong direction too as well. So anyway, we consider that as well. Then of course your live classroom phrase. So those are the assignments for the week. So let's talk a little bit about, even though I've kind of covered a lot of the lesson content, by the way, when I was doing the assignments. So what we're going to deal with is we're going to skip over some of these, but we're going to concentrate on, really, I want to deal with the special populations just a little because we talked about that. With incarceration is like adult and juvenile corrections. And then the vocabulary review, that's something that you'll have to do to get ready. So now let's take a look at, get this out the way if someone has okay. And I'm not going to get into this activity in detail. Oops, clicked it wrong. Oh, here we go. It's up here. There we go. So these are things that I want you to do. So you can't hear what this lady is saying because I have my headphones on. But And so, what we're talking about today is to deal with the issues of what caused people um, to find themselves in the correction system. All right. And we're not going to go over these key theories because you're going to find those as you go through and you do your reading. You're going to find that you'll deal with all of these different issues. So I'm not going to spend, these are um, things that you can use to help you to get ready for the quiz, by the way. And then these different individuals that are involved here are some names that you'll have to learn to deal with. Again, in your readings, we're not going to spend a lot of time with that. I just want you to be aware of how this works. And actually, you could hear it as you go through it, and they talk about each of the different theories that take place. So, okay, so I'm going to get out of this, but I just want to show you how this operates to your benefit and use it. But again, if you do the reading, if you look at the PowerPoints, and you will be able to uh, have these down so that you will be okay in terms of being able to operate with them. Okay. So this is something that you're going to end up doing yourself, dealing with the theories. Um, and as I said, that's why it's an interactive activity that contains supplemental material to help you with your learning and so forth. So now let's talk about incarceration and the prison experience. So with the prison experience itself, uh, the goal of prisons, as it says, have changed over the years, and it has gone more towards rehabilitation. There are some crossovers. So if you notice in this little circle, this little thing here, that if you click on any of these, you can, not these, this is not the one. Here's one of these that you click on. I think, yeah, you click on here. So these are the three models that overlap: rehabilitation, custodial, reintegration. Custodial model involves coming into, and the names kind of help you, into the facility itself. And then you're going to exit the facility at some point, hopefully. And then, but in between that, we are hoping that your custodial will lead to your rehabilitative changes in life, putting you in a new direction so that you can reintegrate, so that you can go back into society. Okay. So take a look at what it says here. The custodial model is where you emphasize the security through discipline and order. In other words, trying to bring to your attention things that you did wrong so that you don't repeat them. Rehabilitation is a thing that should be taking place probably in most instances in facilities. It does take place primarily in juveniles, but it should take place in adults. The problem with rehabilitation in adult facilities is, you've heard the term, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's why it's so critical what I said earlier about special education and about the juvenile justice system, that you are aware of through your research, that juveniles, the system is designed towards rehabilitation to try to minimize the advancement into adult prisons. So emphasize the treatment programs to address the needs. And we talked about the treatment programs that relate to the different needs that individuals have already. Reintegration model emphasizes the fact that when you are going to prison, you need to recognize and understand that at some point you're going to come out and you're going to get back into the community, whether it's through parole or whether you actually serve your entire time. The truth of the matter is that you will be returned to the community. And so in the reintegration aspect, you're being prepared to get into society. It's kind of like individuals who are in the military, who are in special forces, as I wasn't, but I have friends who were. They have to deprogram them when they come back out and try to get them to return to normal life. Well, this is kind of like where we deal with reintegrate. Um, okay. So the key thing is to try to get these individuals to this, okay, so that when they do get to this point, that they are unlikely or decrease the possibilities of recidivism. So there are individuals who find themselves based upon the crime that they commit. They're sentenced to different uh, levels of prison, maximum security, where you have the gun, you have the towers. Those are what we call the old prisons that you'll see a lot of times, where there's barbed wire fences, there's guards in towers with guns, and then the visitation issue is not as much as normal. You do get some visits, but the point of the matter is that these individuals are sometimes, if I hate to use the term, but I have to use it here to help you, are very incorrigible individuals, and they don't really care about themselves, let alone other individuals. So they find themselves in maximum security prisons and with extended terms of sentencing as well. As we should be aware, many jurisdictions, including Illinois, don't have a death penalty. And so individuals who end up going to long term facilities and end up in the maxes. And so they don't have anything to lose. What can only give them more time. But if they've already got a life sentence, what can you do with them? You've already done the worst thing you can possibly do with them. So therefore, maximum security prisons are designed to minimize the possibility of people breaking out, and freedom is restricted along with visitation. Medium is in between, less rigid, gives some offenders the opportunity to begin to um, move in the direction of getting some help. However, you need to be aware in both of those that I mentioned, there's still the need for the educational, the vocational, as well as, of course, addressing issues of individuals who have mental health issues and drug problems. The key thing that you need to be aware of is because of the type of individual that is, they're categorized in these classifications to try to keep them from taking advantage of this last group, the minimum security, where offenders and visitors have a lot of freedom. And these are individuals who are less likely, according to the system, to find themselves in um, more trouble, or at least they can respond to or given the opportunity for programs that help them. And so I'm not going to go over all of this language here. Okay, I want to see that because I think you're addressing something that I talked about. Jennifer says we're finding that rehabilitation programs and probation sentences are being grossly overused to not populate the jail system. It becomes, yeah, and see, and that's the problem. That's why I get back to what I just said earlier about the economic aspects of not having enough facilities to hold people. And so what they do is they start from the minimum security facilities and start to let people out. So what you're saying is that people are allowed to, well, probation, of course, comes, you don't go to prison, but in parole is what they do. They'll let you out earlier to decrease the pressure of overpopulation. Is that what you just said? And that those individuals often are not ready to deal with the system, and so then they become recidivists. I think that's kind of like what you're talking about, but I would totally agree with that. But it's a catch 22. It's a catch 22. And if you yep, because it has to do with the monies that are allocated to hire the number of individuals that are doing the job. Yeah, it is. Your volume of individuals that you have to deal with is not does not allow you to um, deal with the issues to get them successfully into rehabilitation. So what we try to tell people is this: is that work with what you have and work to help as many as possible. I want to read this last one before we move on, um, because we're almost out of time here. It says, because prisons confine a large number of people in cramped quarters, they are the perfect receipt for violence. So that goes right with what we were just talking about. And so there are a lot of the special populations, and this kind of helping you with your research. Studies have shown that younger men, 16 to 24, are more prone to violence due to racist attitudes and attitude belief systems that condone violence and contribute to high level for prisoner violence. And so you deal with the gangs and all these different things. So these are all part and parcel of what you're going to deal with. And these are some of the factors that you're going to discover in your research. The 5 factors: inadequate supervision caused by what we just talked about a few minutes ago. The design of the prison, it's not a place where, it's not really designed to uh, help a person to get better. It's just segregating them for a period. Weapons are available in prison, as anybody who knows works there. They can get them easily. And then there's a housing issue, particularly when you're overlapping the special populations, and then the close quarters aspects of it as well. So, um, so there are 5 factors that contribute to violence, and these are the 5. I'm not going to go over them because we just kind of like dealt with them already. Special populations, I'm not going to spend time on that because we already kind of talked about that, but I'll just kind of glean over them. So again, special substance abusers, developmental disabilities, HIV and AIDS, elderly, long-term offenders, military, we talked about that, sexual offenders. And so we go back to it. And so the point of the matter is that these are the groups that you can elaborate on based upon what your assignments are that you had there. So I'm not going to go over that again. Okay, so with us concluding this assignment today, lecture today, I want to take a few minutes to talk about juveniles. And I already talked about how they're treated differently, more toward rehabilitation. And then these bullet points kind of support everything in a nutshell. Um, that the young and can easily be changed, uh, have a high rate of desistance. Juvenile families are an important part of the lives. Juveniles have influenced by their peers, and they have little responsibility for others. So what you do is you catch these kids while they're kids so that they don't grow into adults. And so there's less emphasis, as I said, placed on punishment and more on individualized treatment. As I said, rehabilitation is the thing. So let's take a look at it, and let's do a little drag and drop quickly here as we conclude here. So juvenile petition, which of these fit that function? Juvenile petition is the what? Yep, it's the formal charge. Taken into custody, does that fit within juvenile, adult, arrest, juvenile referred to court? Which one did you say? Let me keep the chat open now. Adult arrested. Okay. Legal basis for holding. So which one is it? Referred to court? Yep. Outcome of the case. Yep. Some of these not. There we go. And then the last two, person charged, determination of guilt. So if you see the word guilt, do you look at that as a juvenile or as an adult term? Yep. And then of course, okay. So these are things that you'll be aware of concerning the juvenile system. And if you notice, it heads more toward rehabilitation. All right, so now your vocabulary review, and I'm not going to spend time with this. I'm just going to point it out to you and show you how important it is. So you can take these and match them up. So let's just do this first one, and then we'll call it a day. Then I recommend you to take time to do these yourself before you take your quizzes. The need principle. Which one is the need principle? Take a stab at it, even if you don't know. The responsivity principle. And then of course this one. Okay, let's see how good it was. Good. So you got them all right. So you do the same thing for each of these. Okay, and I'm not going to continue, but I'll just show you. You go through the same process. Very important that you get those down for that. Any questions about this week? Any questions? No questions? Any questions about anything that you still have doubts about? Yeah, I haven't given that yet. Any ideas for that one? Usually you'll discover that the code is something I've talked about already. Any ideas? No, we're off of that. That's last week. In the content of the materials, I've talked about something that's very important about the whole concept of corrections. Who said Trinity? Take the question mark off. So that's it. That is it. Does each special population have a breakdown in them? Yeah. Stop putting question marks on stuff when you know stuff like that. You're right. Does each special population have a breakdown in them that will need to be addressed? Or just right on the overall general? No, no. Now remember now, you're only using one, right? You're only doing one special population. Okay? So you're going to adequately address the questions that are asked in the assignment for the group that you choose. Does that help any? So you got it, Jennifer? Okay, great. All right. No, don't. That was the first thing I said earlier. And some of you guys are in and out, which I understand. But here's the point: is that we want you to we want you to do like Colonel Sanders. We want you to do chicken and not burgers and not fish. We want you to do chicken. If you're going to do burgers, do burgers. So if you're going to do elderly, if you're going whatever whichever one of the special populations that you decide that you want to deal with in terms of this assignment, I want you to take that special assignment. I mean that special group, whichever one of the special populations, and I want you to address the issues that the rubric calls for, whichever one you want. And you know, think about one that you have a real interest in and operate from that. All right. So no, it says select one of the special populations. One. A lot of students miss that, and they write a paper that's like a thesis, and then they say, "Wow, this class was really hard." Well, you made it hard because you tried to do all of these and you didn't do justice to any of them because otherwise you'd be writing a book. You can't do that in a week. All right. Well, you can't see what I just put up here because the fact that I didn't share it. So that's what I was talking about. One of these. Select one of the special populations. One. Then create an action plan that part one deals with what that selected special population is. And then you're going to provide an overview of the characteristics that define this group as a special population. And part two, then you're going to deal with the issues and the solution to the issues that are faced by that special population making sure that you have sources and references to support your position. Got it now? Yeah. So don't kill yourself there. All right, guys, I'm going to say good night to you. I wish you the best. Stay safe this week, and I will see you again next Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. Have a good evening. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to stay healthy. Yes, everybody should stay healthy. Good night.